Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being on fire for life. That's our goal. That's the mission of this wonderful podcast. Is that likened to what Howard Thurman says? That stop asking what the world needs and start asking yourself what makes you come alive. That's kind of the fundamental belief that we have about this show. Is that we feature artists, uh, activists, wonderful authors, leaders, performers, individuals that are on fire for what they believe. And I'm thrilled today to be featuring Randy Rolfe and her up and coming new book, The Single Ingredient Diet. Sounds very exciting, doesn't it? So if you have questions, please add them in the comment section, either on live right now or later, because we love hearing from you. And so thank you so much. And Randy Rolfe, welcome to our show today. So glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Temple, and I love your title, "On Fire for Life," because life is as good as we can make it. You know, it's our
It
job.
is. It is. It really is. And I like to create larger paradigms so I can continue growing in them.
Ah, that's good. I
So
love that.
it would be kind of hard to show up like this on fire for our life, you know. So,
Right.
so it's like it has a dual, reason. Well, interviewing people for 15 years now. I know recovery people like me, we get into being on a mission for recovery because, we know these things work, etc. And you have represented the health industry and vibrant living for a long time. And so, my curiosity before we delve into your book and some other things that you represent, um, how did you get to a place that it matters and that you didn't get into just what societal beliefs say? How did your path start? I'm very curious to your story.
Well, you mentioned recovery, and I go back to that because I grew up in a very privileged life, good, beautiful home, and traveled every summer with my parents and great schools. But my parents had drinking problems.
Oh,
And when I was married, I realized that there was a real problem and it was affecting me. And so I went to the family groups for Al-Anon, and it was a lifesaver emotionally. So I thought, well, I want to find out how to have a healthy, happy family without addiction, without emotional stress. And I did it and started teaching it. But I think nutrition is critical. Also, parent child communication, being available, but not trying to be perfect. I actually wrote a book about not trying to be perfect as a parent if you're an adult child of alcoholics. So, yeah, we're right in there. And so when I had got married, I wanted to know how to keep us healthy. So I
hmm.
studied nutrition, and at the time I was a law student, became a lawyer. But then I realized, well, okay, I want to end conflict. I saw it all over when I was traveling and around the world. But and I thought I'd be an international diplomat as a lawyer. But then I thought, well, it really starts at home. If we raise our children to be loving, generous, empathetic, compassionate, productive people, then we'll have a better world. So I found that that was where I was most effective.
That's really powerful. As you're talking, I'm hearing Michelle Obama in my head, because on a feed on Instagram, and I thought this was so powerful. And this is just tuned right into what you're saying with Al Anon and the energy of parenting. Is she said, "Oh no," and I'm paraphrasing. "Oh no, we're not here to be their friends." The moment you step into "I'm being your friend," you're already letting down the parenting paradigm or cycle, if you will, because she said at home is where by not being their friends, you actually sometimes disappoint them. Because when you're trying to be their friend, you're not being authentic. And she said a child needs to experience their first disappointments at home. And I thought that is so profound because I in my work, I do see that sometimes of parents like wanting to be somebody's buddy and almost asking the child for approval. And that's too far, the other side of things for sure. Um,
Absolutely.
but good for you. So in Al-Anon, did you find that you started being exposed to people that were willing to look at diet and nutrition and expanding as far as taking care of yourself?
Yes, I think so. It's really about Al-Anon's about spiritual growth, but if you're in the growth mode, you're going to look at, well, how can I stay healthy? And the other thing is to control what you can control, and let God or your whoever is in control of those things you can't control to
Mhm.
handle the things you can't control. But we can control what we eat and what our lifestyle looks like, what our schedule's like, what we're thinking through the day. So definitely, I actually helped a lot of people I met in the rooms with that particular part of their life of just because when anxiety builds up, you have even more need nutritionally too. So
Mhm.
to get your sleep and to drink good water and to really look at the food. I mean, if you're ODing on beverage, refined uh, beverages, sodas, because you're depressed about your family, it's a vicious circle.
Mhm. Totally. I emceed an event in LA this past weekend, and it was interesting how it wasn't the brand. It was called Heal the Field, Heal, Heal, the field, as in a softball field, or the
Yes, yeah,
field, the morphogenetic field. I
yeah.
just check in with my Southern and I make sure people are understanding what I'm saying. But that being said, and it was interesting, the underlying chiropractors, alternative, the DOs, the different people, we're all coming from a place that it seemed there was this underlying idea of people were addressing the physical, the spiritual, the mental, right? And the emotional. And that really excites me because in my training on the shamanic walk of, taking care of yourself and having vibrant energy, all four of those are necessary, because like you see spiritual people meditate and meditate, meditate, but yet if they're not taking care of their physical body or the mental or emotional, then it's up here, right? And it's the balance. And so I love the idea of the necessity that you're bringing forth is that it's when you make sacrifices in one area, like if you're traveling and you're on a plane and you're somewhat maybe dehydrated, then don't sacrifice eating well, and
Mhm.
maybe not a good time at a conference to drink. I mean, I don't drink, I haven't in 30, soon be 37 years, but I do observe my energy come third, fourth, fifth day of a conference compared to everybody else that's drinking every night. And my
Right.
energy is up here and theirs is "Arr." So I love how you address the whole body and tackle that. It's that when you talk about your book, the single ingredient diet. Um, there's so much to take in, and I would urge everybody to purchase this book. It's on Amazon. You can go to Randy, Randy Rolfe, Rolfe.com, and get a copy because the single ingredient is calling us.
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely. I've always been kind of riding two horses professionally after I quit law, with the parenting and the nutrition because they're so closely related. Back in I guess it was the '90s, I was touring the country with my book on recovery, helping parents break the cycle of the kinds of problems that they grew up with. But feeding the children is so important because you get irritable people. If you come home from work and you're irritable, or your spouse is irritable, and the kids come home from school irritable, and they haven't had enough sleep, and they jumped on the bus before they had breakfast, everybody's going to be at 6s and 7s, and you get more stress, and then the parents have an extra drink or whatever. It's again a vicious circle when you don't take care of the whole body, the spirit, the nutrition, and the relationships around you. They all feed on each other, either an upward cycle or a vicious downward cycle.
You say transform your relationship to food in just 21 days.
Yes. Now, what we did, what my husband and I did when we realized that we needed to do something, I had been educating myself, and at breakfast we were both lawyers at the time. I would tell him about what I was learning about nutrition, and he thought that made a lot of sense. So after about a month, I said, I think I just want to throw out everything in the pantry and refrigerator and start over again with whole, real foods. Nothing that has make-believe additives and non-foods in it, and none of this refined food, because I'm learning that the body needs real food. And thank goodness, he said, great. Because I've worked with many couples where one of the spouses just like, oh no, I like my stuff. But 30, 40 years later, they have major, major issues that we don't have. And so it shows up later. And I'm very excited to be a model for that. So the 21 days is, I have 21 chapters explaining why this is so important. And then the second part is 21 days getting acquainted with real food and how easy it is to prepare and how to find it, and to make sure it's organic and as whole as you can have right from nature. So in 3 weeks, you can change any habit. So the idea is to if you really want to do it this way, to kind of go cold turkey, and then you can reintroduce foods. If the idea of the single ingredient is, don't buy anything that has more than one ingredient. So you don't have to read all those labels. That makes us complacent. The government pretends that these things are safe when you have 17 different names for sugar, for instance. And then you have all these additives for coloring and enhancement and extrusion, and it just goes on and on and on, and for preservatives. So none of that is good for the body. It's all a toxic burden, and it shows up. The liver, the kidneys, the digestion, the immune system all get taxed over time with these non-foods. So as my husband likes to say, what you don't eat is just as important as what you do eat.
Yeah, that's a powerful statement. And because I think it's safe to say you were probably more enrolled initially than he was, which represents a large population of people. What would you say were some of his thoughts coming back? Like, oh my gosh, Randy, because of that, or was he ever uncomfortable? Was it a huge adjustment, or did he start feeling the benefits right away? Because that's what
I was so
do,
persuasive.
right?
I'm sure it was me. I was so persuasive. No, not really. Actually, no. I shared with him everything I was learning, and he said that makes sense. He's a smart guy. He's a lawyer too, and he just said, yeah, that makes sense. And but we both saw changes right away. He had asthma as a child, and he still had, he would get a little winded if he was jogging, and he'd catch colds easily. Once we made that switch, after 3 months, it never happened again. He was not winded. He could jog as long as he wanted. He didn't get colds anymore. And for me, I had some of the same symptoms my mother had. Monthly, I'd have some pains, and my hair and skin would get all dry in the winter, and that stopped. I mean, within a couple of months, all of that was gone. And I didn't expect it at all. Neither of us expected any changes. I was just trying to find ways. Well, we still have a goal of being married 100 years. We're at 55 now.
Wow, good for you.
So I figured we got to eat right to live that long. And we were just thinking that we were preparing to have a healthy, long life. And when we saw little things we thought were just part of us go away, we were like sold. And that, we're really onto something here. And people, when we had our kids, people kept asking us, why are your kids so healthy? And I said, well, they don't eat anything that's not real food. And of course, I breastfed them because that is the best food that nature has provided. And so that led to me really realizing that I was able to explain these things in a way that people got it, that it made sense to them. Like, oh, yes, of course, we've only started eating chemicals in the last 100 years, and look at us, we're a mess.
Mm-hmm. We're, I heard the number, we're 37th, that we have more money in our America, and on this show, obviously, we have people tuning in from other countries, so bear with us. But in America, which is where we two live, we spend more money on healthcare than anything, and yet we are 37th on that health line, and we're so duped and so misinformed. And one of our listeners is asking, what's the topic? We're talking about the single ingredient diet. We're talking about eating whole food and real food, and the intention, behind that. And we are so programmed. I mean, it's like, it's a choice to not have processed sugar. It's also another choice, and the expanded choice, to look at everything you're eating, even spaghetti or this or that, and realize it's a lot of these prepackaged things are loaded in sugar. And what our society often doesn't realize is that's the way. Yes, it might be a little bit in your DNA or your genetics, but you certainly add to it your allergy if you start out with sugar. And I was telling someone not long ago, Randy, that I was a smart student, easily bored with school, because I picked up things real quick. But we weren't called bright then, or we didn't register on any kind of test. It was just that you caused a lot of trouble. It never occurred to the teacher, let me look at my life. Why would my students be bored? I mean, help us that they wouldn't question their teaching style. But on top of that, my father, he rushed to help the kids get out of school with white toast loaded with butter and laced with white sugar. So I was like, this,
Right.
right? And just got used to sugar. And then we did soda. And then we did sweets, all starting with an S. And then we had to get sober with an S, because, one sugar leads to another. And I find it hard to believe, but it's true. People used to ask me, from the 15-year stretch that I drank a lot, they would ask me, would you like something sweet, Temple? Can I get you something sweet? And guess what I said? I don't like sweet things. I'm not attracted to sugary things while I'm drinking a whole bottle of wine.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, well, the founders of AA were trying to educate people that sugar was the entry drug. but they couldn't get through because of the food industry, and everybody, we're told that we can't resist sugar. I mean, there's a real brainwashing going on, and I go into it a lot in the book. But the food actually makes us eat more food and makes us crave sugar because it robs us of our energy. So then we need a pickup every 2 hours. So and what are you going to go for? A donut or a soda or a sweetened coffee? And I remember my very first job. I worked at this was in Richmond, Virginia. I worked as a reporter for a news station at the TV, and I couldn't believe it. Everybody, every 2 hours, they got up and either got coffee or a candy bar. And I'm like, what is this? I never snacked. My parents, we didn't snack. We were allowed one soda on a hot day in the summer. I did have Frosted Flakes for breakfast every morning, all through school. But they had us eat a very good dinner. Dad was a doctor, and he always gave us vitamins in the morning. And my grandfather had a organic garden. So we had a very mixed experience. But what's happening now is that we are blamed that we're weak-willed and lazy. We don't exercise enough. We can't resist these sugars, when it's the food that makes us that way. And you mentioned genetics. People say, oh, well, my parents had heart disease, or my grandmother had diabetes. But if you go back 100 years, these things were very, very rare. And what we've changed is our lifestyles. But the doctors don't ever ask, well, what did your parents eat? What did your grandmother eat? And if you do, you'll find out maybe that your grandmother, was always baking cake, like my grandmother,
Yeah.
So you have to look at the lifestyle. And that's one of the big myths I like to bust, is that, oh, we're living so much longer. That's why we have all these diseases, where in fact, the statistics are that if you make it through childhood and epidemics and famine and war, if you live to 50, the chances of living longer we've only added 10 years in the last century, only 10 years. And with all the medications and the disability and the dementia that we have because of our poor diet and lifestyle, that last 10 years is not a great addition today.
Right.
And people are getting these diseases younger and younger and younger. And I talked to a man who is a veteran from the Vietnam War and very healthy, takes care of himself. But he said that the modern military has had to change their standards because the guys coming in at 18 or 20 are so unhealthy compared to what they were a generation ago or two generations ago.
Oh yeah. Well, you can see it, you can see it at airports or in public places. You could remember seeing a few situations of in a group of people, how many people were struggling. And now even at parking places, there's more handicapped than ever before, and this and that. And that, as we know, is a whole topic in itself. And it's not an absolute, like, this is that and this is that. On the other hand, it is a huge contributor to so many elements and inflammation, our immune system. And I agree with you. I mean, it fascinates me that we used to eat cheese all the time. And many a person will tell you that wheat and dairy are the two worst things that were put into our diet, and that milk helps our bones. It doesn't. I mean, we're just so programmed, so easily influenced, of things that are just to sell a product. And I don't know, I don't have the bigger answer other than people listening to, you other people out there in the field that say, like another thing people will say is, I can't afford to eat well. Well, somewhere you're going to have to pay the money, either on the front end or the later end. And so it would be better to pay the money to feel good, to have more of a vibrant life, I think. And then you're not paying the money in healthcare and all these things. Because if you're telling yourself that when you get to Medicare, they're going to take care of you, well, that's not a good thing either. The way our system's designed is that if you're sick, you're handled. If you're not, good luck to you.
Yes, we have no answer for the degenerative conditions because that's exactly what they are. The whole body's degenerating. It's just which of your organs is the weakest. That's where it starts, whether it's heart disease or cancer with your immune problems or mental or diabetes. That's just what's your weakest link, but they come as a package. And what you were saying about wheat and milk, it's really important for people to realize how brainwashed we are. That I have a whole chapter on milk because it's not milk like it used to come from cows. When our kids were children or babies, we were living in dairy country we were homesteading in upstate New York, and we got our milk direct from the dairy down the street. It was fresh. Sometimes it was even warm. And the butter rose to the top. And it was lovely. And I made my own butter sometimes, where we just stirred it and drank the milk. And same with the wheat. It's been hybridized so many times. It has 4 nuclei instead of 1. You can still go to a store and get the original wheat. Like it's called einkorn. There's some others that are original wheats that have not been hybridized, and people have no problem with them. The other problem with wheat is that about 10, 12 years ago, they started putting glyphosate on wheat to make it easier to harvest. So when people eat non-organic wheat products of any kind, any bakery or any bread you buy, you're getting glyphosates, which just mess up your biome. And here in the West, we're finally realizing how important those synergistic microbes are in our gut to help not only digest our food, but keep our digestion healthy and even manufacture some of the neurotransmitters we need for our brain. But in the Eastern medicine, they've been recognizing the importance of digestion forever, as far back as we go, and always using herbs and gentle exercise like yoga to keep things moving, like you said about just energy medicine. And so the milk and eggs, I eat milk and wheat and eggs, but I get that organic, and I get the single ingredient. I make my own bread, and sometimes my husband makes it. And I use goat milk instead of cow's milk because it's much closer to what humans are used to, because goats don't have to put on 300 pounds to run with the herd within 3 months. My father, being a doctor, he said that kids were getting taller and taller because they were eating so much protein and so much milk that has the growth hormone in it, so that steers can join the herd within 3 months to migrate. But so there's nothing wrong with the real food that nature gave us. We've just changed it so much that we shouldn't call it milk, and we shouldn't call it wheat anymore, because it's completely changed. It's a human artifact.
Yeah, unfortunately, it became another greed pool, and
right.
all commercialized. We used to have chickens. We'd have a few of them in a whole warehouse, and now they're stacked in, thousands. And it's heartbreaking on so many levels what has been allowed to happen. I mean, the word's been out on the street for what, 15 years, maybe 20, that processed food is not good. But how many rows and rows in the grocery store are still that? People still eat it. It's right there. It really, it breaks my heart when I just read an article that one of the major Boar's Head, threw away what, 7 million pounds? Was that right? So many pounds. I mean, that was a whole lot of lives that died for just inadequacy. It's just the sacredness of energy behind our bodies can use some work, significant work. And, I used to say there was this book by Sandra Ray. I don't know if you remember it, but it really triggered me when I saw your book, The Single Ingredient Diet. Transform your relationship to food in just 21 days. Sandra Ray's book was the only diet there is.
Mm.
And so one of the things that she addressed was, what was your experience when you grew up around the table?
Yeah.
What was that? Was it a good time, or was it when the family got together and they were fighting, or were you forced to eat food, or whatever? And just many things like that. But that the only diet there was really ultimately was love. And I remember many a course I taught through the years where I would say, what worker would work for you if you talk to them as bad as you talk to yourself? You want your body to work for you, but the way you talk to it in front of the mirror, why would it want to work for you? So it's I love what your husband said about, it's what we eat and what we don't eat. And what did you say? Because you said it better. Say it again. It's what we eat and what we don't eat.
Yeah, what you don't eat is just as important as what you do eat.
Yeah. And
Yes.
it's what we're eating and what's eating us.
True.
Right?
Yes.
Another component. And in a way, we have been eaten because we bought into, and our natural selves have been overridden by commercialization, commercials, imagery that says this is cute because you get a free gift, or you got to have that, or you got to go through this drive-through, and it's just not good for you. It's just not
No,
good for you.
it's all
Yeah.
there's so much going on, and there's an epidemic of depression and anxiety among our young people, but they've also been, like you said, programmed to eat wrong. And schools have the machines, the food machines available, because it's a way to earn money for the uniforms and things like that. It just makes absolutely no sense. And the reason I focus on the relationship to food is that so many people feel, well, I have cravings, or I need to eat every 2 hours, and they don't realize how they've been moved into that way of their metabolism, and they don't realize that their body's not put together that way. It is supposed to. I mean, there are societies around the world that eat once a day. But the foods they're eating give them balanced energy through the day. I talked to a guy who he went into the Amazon jungle for a month with some of the tribes there, and he said that they would go hunting, and he said that they would run for 6 to 8 hours, and they'd pull out some little starchy thing about in the middle of the trip. And he said he just couldn't believe it. They didn't have to snack. They weren't hunting around for some berries every 20 minutes. He just said they had so much energy. But they were sleeping on the ground. They were getting the good energy from the sky and from the earth and from their food. And so people, that's why I say, go cold turkey, because that's the only way you can re-educate your body and realize you don't need that sugar every 2 hours. And that they started, I think it was even in the 80s, they were telling diabetics, diabetic type 2, just have a little sweet thing every 2 hours and it'll keep your blood sugar even. Well, it might work for a year or two, but eventually you are going to get insulin resistance. And the cells are going to say, no, we can't do this anymore. And the pancreas gets tired. And so it just builds on itself, and things just get worse and worse if you take some of these dietetic recommendations that are designed to tamper down some of your symptoms, but not to fix the system. You really have to re-educate your body. And once you've re-educated it, you don't even want that really sweet stuff or the really salty stuff or the fried foods. It's just yuck. It's so greasy and nasty. So it's really it's re-education, and then you find out what food really tastes like. It's every food has its own wonderful flavor. It's not just either wheat or soy or sugar or salt, and with a whole bunch of artificial flavors, what they call enhancers, flavor enhancers. Well, food has its own flavor. You don't need to enhance it unless you've been brainwashed and basically gaslighted by eating processed foods. And what we often don't talk about is the beverages. The soda is one of the worst because you're mainlining the sugar. It doesn't even have a chance. When you're eating fruit, there's all the vitamins and minerals and natural fluid and lots of fiber. So your body digests it. The sugar goes into your blood slowly. But if you take a soda or even fruit juice that hasn't been diluted, you're putting the sugar right in there and you're stressing your arteries. And that's what causes heart disease, actually. It's sugar, it's not fat that causes heart disease.
Really, you can really, without soda, I was adding up in my mind. I think I don't know, I might have had 3 sodas since the year 2000 or something.
Yeah, that's about my way.
It's just so not good for you. And one time I was in a class, I think it was NECAN, but I was in a class that they said to take soda and put it on the battery of your automobile and watch the acid go away. Well, that did it.
Yes.
Because it's just horrible for you. It really is. I've seen people with major bladder issues and kidney problems and stuff, and they drink soda like it's water, and it's not.
Right. Yes. The sun is coming right in on my face. Excuse me.
You got the sun shining coming right in. I want to thank all of you for tuning in today, and this is a great show to share with family and friends because it's addressing some things that people often don't want to talk about. But we do have a notable issue in our society. We have a lot of people with ailments and aches and oohs and problems and their physical being that so much of it is being given the wrong information, not eating properly, and not taking care of yourself. And it's so worth it when you find yourself, no matter what age, okay? Because being in your teens and your 20s and your 30s, you ought to have like the body of whoa, meaning you take care of yourself. And we're not going to get into dynamics and argumentative things about people being a certain size and all that. There's no judgment here. We're just simply informing about the necessity to eat according to what intuitively get the research, look up things, read the ingredients. Randy's saying one ingredient back in the day, a great caterer and chef that made food for me always said, if there's more than 3 ingredients, don't put it in your mouth. So there's a great message in that. because a lot of it is chemicals. A lot of things are preserved to last on a shelf or not last. Don't forget that, to not last. So you'll buy more and more and more of the same thing. So we owe it to ourselves if we want to be on fire for life, if we want to have a lot of energy. And, I look at high school friends, and I look at different people that we're all the same age, and I know that diet has so much to do with it.
Right. And what you said about weight, there's so much noise about weight and judgment, but your body has a natural good weight. But the way to get to it is to give your body the nourishment it needs. And it's almost deliberate that we don't even understand the word diet anymore. And originally it was a regimen for health. But then we say, are you on a diet? And so we think it's just about weight loss. But there's so many ridiculous ways to lose weight, but then it just pops right back because the body still hasn't been rebalanced and re-educated. So you're like, oh, yes, I get to eat my things again. And then it causes that vicious cycle where you overeat too much. And one of my favorite studies very recently was a very careful study where they had two groups that were pretty much matched by age and health. And one had a diet of ultra processed foods, and one had minimally processed foods. They made sure that they had exactly the same kinds of foods, and the calorie counts was basically the same. And for 2 weeks, they ate whatever they were supposed to in that category. And then they switched them for 2 weeks. And the ones that were on the ultra processed foods gained 8 pounds. And the ones that were on the unprocessed tended to lose 2 or 3. And when they switched them, same thing happened. So it wasn't like these individuals were different people. And what was even more important was the people on the ultra processed food ate 500 calories more each day. And they said they ate faster. They didn't even give we have hormones that tell us, oh, there's enough in your stomach. Well, let's stop. They ate enough to go past that place before the body could say that to itself. So that's what I mean about changing what the body's saying to you. So they ate more than their body even wanted because they didn't wait to see what their body wanted. Because processed foods, it goes down so easily. And a lot of it loses its taste if you chew it too long, because then you get to the chemicals and they don't have any flavor. So if you're eating real food and you're chewing it, it tastes good to the last chew. And so you finish chewing it and enjoy it, and then you take another bite. So you eat slowly enough that you really like it. So, and your body will tell you like, wow, I think you're full. And you're like, yeah, I had a good meal. So it's really about that re-education. And so many people don't realize how they're being hoodwinked by these foods. And they think these are their favorite foods when really they've just been brainwashed into turning their body into craving that particular flavor or texture or even smell.
That's so powerful. You were saying earlier before we went live that you do actually a free consultation. So singleingredient.com.
A single ingredient diet.
It's singleingredient.com.
Yes. Right.
Okay. So, Andrea, would you put that in the notes, please, that people can access that? So singleingredient.com. And then you can enter your information and you get some kind of download or something.
Well,
How does it work?
There's a free training there. And also you can sign up for a free complimentary consultation with me.
Wow. Good for you. That's great. Yeah.
I love it, and I love questions, because I've been doing this for, believe it or not, 52 years, and I've heard every
No, I
question.
don't believe it. See, that's a witness right there. That's living proof of what is possible. You
Yeah,
know, with
exactly. My
the
husband just turned 80, and everybody thinks to me he's 60, maybe 63, and he's out working outside, and oh, he does everything that he did 30 years ago. So, and it's we've proven it.
yeah,
And I've worked
you
with
have.
so many people that and he thanks me regularly for keeping him healthy and getting rid of his asthma. And but he loves the food, and it's not that hard when you're using real food. It actually tastes fabulous, and you don't have to have a new kind of thing. And there's so many people searching recipes online, and they think, oh gee, I need all these other herbs. The real food tastes fabulous, the
Hmm.
organic food, because your body knows, okay, it's got the vitamins and the minerals and the fiber and the carbohydrates and the quality fat, and it's just like happy. So our taste buds work when you don't gaslight them with chemicals.
Absolutely. Well, I am so glad that you're committed to doing the work you do. I want to remind everybody this is the book to have. It's the Single Ingredient Diet. Transform your relationship to food in just 21 days. There's so much in here. I mean, it's incredible the research you've done um, and examples of changes that have been made in people. And if you're looking at your goals and you're looking at some of your intentions, and we're midway through the year, now would be a good time to look at a new day and a new time. And by the time you're out of 1 month, just think of the energy you can have, and being on fire for life, and being an energetic person. I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I'm so grateful, Randy Rolfe, that you do the work you do. I want to thank you so much for being on today. Everybody, again, you can go to Randy, Randy Rolfe, ROLFE.com, or you can also get your free consultation at singleingredientdiet.com. And that way you can check in to, it would be a great time to make a new decision, especially in the season of Leo where fire is all around. It's a good time to start something new for sure. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Appreciate you checking in with us, and see you next week.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Randy.
Temple. It's been great.
Thank you for being
And what
here.
you do is fabulous as well.